The lights. Hi, everybody. No pressure, but if you want to move forward, so feel free at this point. I do love having conversations more than I love, like being high. Maybe I should, no, I was going to say, maybe I can come down, but yeah, I can come down. Wow, they're live streaming, so hi, live streamers. Well, thank you for coming this morning. My name is Marika Siewert, and I am from Langley, BC, which is really close to Vancouver. And so happy to be here. Brian and I got to visit last year, and I met Matt and Bruce, and this is an incredible conference. What they do to equip worship leaders, musicians, believers in the church, I'm so encouraged by it. And I've been around, and so to find good humans doing good things, so props to you, Matt, back there. Really, really honored to be here, and especially talking about empowering women in music and in creativity. And I'm gonna pray, if that's okay. God, thank you for this morning. Thank you that we get to be here together, to learn, to meet new friends. God, give me the words to share this morning that will just bring life and hope. And I just want to speak love over all of you this morning, that you are loved. You are seen, you are heard. And God, I just pray that even as we're in the session, that you would ignite dreams in the hearts of everyone here. Thank you, God. Amen. So I want to tell you a little bit about my story, because that will probably help you know why I'm here today. I was born in Trinidad, which is in the Caribbean, but I grew up my young years in England, and then when I was 12, I moved to Canada. And in England, I was very much in music. I played piano, I played double bass in orchestras. I didn't know what I was going to do in music, but I always knew I was going to play piano. And when I moved to a small town called Medicine Hat, Alberta. And anyone know what that is? Yeah, sort of, yeah, okay. And yeah, I know you guys do. And it was a big sort of culture shock for me, because I came from England, where it was this very, very diverse community, to a place where we were basically one of 4 families of color in this city. And so all the things that I knew as a young person, whether it was just having more people of color around, or even though the music I played, the music I listened to, it all kind of changed when I moved to Medicine Hat. But the cool thing about it is that is really where I found my own faith. I started going to youth group when I was 14, and there was definitely a bit of a transition for me, because I have amazing parents that really empowered me to just believe that I could do anything that I set my mind to. And they never really looked at me and said, well, okay, you're a girl, so you can only do these certain things. And I really appreciate that about, especially my father, really encouraged me to just really work hard. I think I never grew up, actually. I know the climate these days, there's a lot of racism, anti-racism, all that kind of stuff. I actually never grew up with that. I knew I was only like one of the only like colored kids in school, but I never grew up thinking, oh, I'm one of the only few colored kids in school. And so I just grew up thinking everybody's dad tells them they can do whatever they want to do in life. And so I really, really appreciate that about growing up. But one of the most impacting things for me when I was in church was really connecting intimately with God. And I've always been like this with my faith. I was never one of the like jumpers in the front row at all the worship services. I was like in the back, like sitting at the back, like being like, okay, Jesus, where are you in this room? You know, I was like, who should I talk to? Who needs a hug today? I was always kind of one of the quiet ones. Even though a lot of people that know me would be like, really? You're one of the quiet ones? But that's where my faith, I think, started. And I feel like it's always been sort of a quiet faith for me. And when I turned, I guess, 17, I actually went into full-time ministry. And I moved to Chico, California. You know what Chico, California is? Yeah. And I went into youth ministry. And it was funny because I was literally a youth. I was 17 years old. I was a 17-year-old girl, obviously a bit of a crazy girl going into full-time ministry at 17. But I loved it. I got to work with kids even my age and a bit younger, and on a school campus. And we basically just got to be there for kids that just, wanted to, they had campus clubs. Do you guys have those here? Maybe not anymore, but back then they had campus clubs where we'd basically just go and just hang out with kids that just wanted to hang out with like other believers on campus. And while we were there, the Columbine shooting happened. Do you guys remember that? And one of the most profound days for me is that day happened to be one of the campus club days. And our team, there's about 4 of us, 2 guys, 2 girls, we walk on a campus and we see our campus club in a circle around their American flag on the school campus, all in hands, and they are praying. And it was one of the most profound things as a young person to see even your peers, because they were really my peers. They didn't really care what was going on around them. There was kids just, having their lunch and doing normal things. And there was a circle of about 50 kids, hand in hand, not angry, more like sad and crying out for their friends in their campus clubs. And then that night, I wrote a song in like 3 minutes. Like, I know that never really happens, but sometimes, there's been a few times in my life where I get up and then it's probably like 2 a.m. And I always keep a pen and a paper. I'm so old school, even today I still keep a pen and a paper. I'm definitely doing this, not this, with my songwriting. But and I wrote a song in about 3 minutes, and it was about that moment. And then we ended up singing that song in a ministry time that we had. And that's when I realized, I realized the power of music. I realized the power that it has to be able to influence generations. And I didn't know how. Not that I was like, I'm going to be a musician now. It wasn't like that. It was just, I just want to serve God with whatever I have. And I ended up moving back to Canada after my year of ministry. And I was like, okay, God, I want to sing for you. And actually, it's funny. I wasn't actually a singer. I was more of a piano player. But I was like, if worship is the way to do it for God, that's how I want to do it. And so I proceeded to, go to all the Christian conferences and, be like, okay, well, how's this going to work? And I didn't have anyone to really guide me because, one, in Canada, there wasn't a lot of people like me doing what I wanted to do. The Canadian Christian music scene is way smaller than the American music scene. And I went to one conference and I was like, this is it. This is going to be like my big breakthrough into Christian music. And it was more of a wake-up call for me because there was no one that looked like me. I think I was 19 years old. And I'm like, okay, come on, God. There's got to be someone that could take me under their wing and raise me up. And there wasn't. But again, I was not the kind of person that gets defeated easily. And again, I had super supportive parents that were like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? We'll help you. And after that moment, I realized that even though my heart was to be in Christian music, there wasn't a place for me at the time. And after that, I ended up meeting my amazing husband. We got married and we moved to Vancouver. And I proceeded to have a career in pop music. And that is where my doors opened. And even though I was in pop music, which, these days, it is what it is, but back then, I had the ability to really control what I wanted to do with my career. And my heart was always to sing love over people. And every song that I wrote, even when I was in writing rooms, they all have a theme of love. And because even though I don't like the term secular and sacred music, when people say, oh, you're a secular artist. No, because secular means that there's no God in it. And there was always God in the music that I wrote. And so I think by going into pop music, it helped me redefine and help others redefine what that even looked like as a believer. But what it did teach me was the value of people and the value of your words. What you say is important. What you declare for your life is important. And I've always been a big believer that, when you walk into a room, you introduce yourself and you meet the people in the room. And I know, and I'm so happy to see men in this session today, because I think women, and especially in church circles that are all about empowering women, get a bit of a bad rep because it's like we're like anti-men. We're not. We just want to be able to work together. And I think women, especially in churches, we're often in a lot of rooms, even as leaders, but nobody asks us our names. No one asks us where we're from. And I think my biggest message today to everyone is just really to stay curious. And I think if we stay curious about just each other, you learn something, you make new friends, you find your people, you find the next things that you're gonna do. And that's kind of led me to where I am today. So I actually wanna bring somebody up, a very, very important woman in my life, and she doesn't know I'm bringing her up. But Joyce, will you please come and sit here? Everybody, please give Joyce Dirksen a hand. You don't have to say anything. You just can sit right here. Look, I said I wasn't gonna cry. Where's the Kleenex? Hi, Joyce. This is Joyce. So Joyce is, she's my best friend. And she is Brian Dirksen's wife, who Brian is down here. Yeah, you can clap. I am who I am today because this woman saw me. And she sees me, and she continues to see me. And Joyce being Brian's wife, I've watched you go into rooms where often you are not seen. And yet you have, oh, thank you. But yet you are the strongest woman I know. Brian and Joyce, if you didn't know, have special needs. They have 6 kids, and they have special needs kids. And oftentimes you see people on the platform and you go, oh, their lives are all together. And God's just blessed them. And from getting to know this amazing family, I realized that a lot of even Brian's songs were birthed out of hardship and grief. And yet they still stand strong and they choose to see people. And so, and you look, you see these plants down here and this candle? Joyce brings that everywhere we go, on tour with us. She is in a bit of, yes. We definitely have more tubs with more lights and more. But
it's just to make you feel at home.
Yeah, thank you. But can I tell you, look how that changes the stage, right? And Joyce, you have showed me, you have been the most just loyal, dedicated wife and mother. But the gifts that are inside you and the gifts that you still have to give and the dreams that are in your heart to give, I will walk beside you the rest of our lives. You know that. Yes, I know you're planning on it. But I wanted to honor you because it's women like you that make room for women like me. And I want to encourage you all out there to find yourself a Joyce Emily. Because we learn from each other. We strengthen each other. We've gone through the trenches together.
But it all starts with just like...
Do you want to get...
It just starts with really simple things.
Oh, hold on a second. Can we get this mic on, guys? Yeah, great.
Relationship starts with such little things, and it carries on with little things, and it's cups of, we call it coffee and tea together, but all of us as couples and families together. And it's literally one cup of chai that Brian makes after the other, and relationship happens.
Yeah. So I want to honor you because you chose our relationship first, and we get to do amazing things.
Yeah.
They are world changers, these two. But it's our relationship first. I say our favorite things, even after our tours and our films that we make, it's just sitting around the table together. And so I just wanted to honor you this morning because I love you.
Thank you.
So part of what I wanted to really encourage you guys all to do today is that I feel like that as women especially, and as men supporting women, there's obviously so many different theologies in church about what women's roles are. And I don't want to talk about that this morning. I can't convince you that women should be leaders or pastors or worship leaders or whatever. I think that's your own journey and the journeys within your churches. But I do want to say that I have learned, I guess, in my spiritual life and in my study life of the Bible, just so many different things. And it was really impacted. I was speaking at a conference, actually, and I was given a Woman of Destiny Bible back in the day. And it actually sparked me going into to studying to this day the original Hebrew and the Greek words for things. And one of the things that I did was I studied the word worship. Because I think even growing up, like even in my pop career, I was always sort of worship pastoring on the side. That was like my hobby job, I guess. And so I was always sort of in both worlds, the pop world and the worship world. And I studied the word worship because what I was hearing on the outside was worship is stand up, lift your hands, praise God. And honestly, in me, I just never wanted to do that. I was like, am I a bad Christian that I'm a worship leader and I don't want to do that all the time? And I just was like, if I'm wrong, God, tell me. But if I'm still okay to just like be on the floor on my knees or be at the back and just be listening, I want to know what worship actually is. And so it sparked this sort of curiosity that I learned that in the King James Version of the Bible, the Hebrew word mankind, in that culture, in that time, was changed to just say man, which blew my mind because a lot of our theologies were based around men doing this, or this was for men, or God blessed this. And again, it's not that God doesn't bless the men. I love men, just saying. Married to a handsome one right here. But I really saw how some of these ideologies of women having their place in the church has defined sometimes how we dream, how we hear God and then doubt what God is saying because we feel maybe it's counter culture to what the Bible is saying. And today I want to just help ignite things that are in you that perhaps God has whispered to you. Or for the men, perhaps it's things that God is whispering to you about the women in your ministry, in your church, in your circles, in your places of work. That actually we need to foster and encourage to be alive. So a couple of the practical things. I have noticed, and even to this day, I tour, Brian and I tour together, and we've actually been planning our own tours where we're in charge of everything. So one of the things I really appreciate about Brian and Joyce is they've really allowed me to have a platform to be real, first of all, about sort of the challenges of being a recording artist, worship leader, touring the country. Now in Canada, we have a smaller Christian music industry. I'm one of the only women of color touring in that country. There's a lot of work to do in our industry, but I also realize the opportunity to be able to share the stage with Brian, but also to pave the way for other women and other women of color coming up as well. But part of the things that I've noticed, because we tour with our daughter Zoe, she's 17, and she's an amazing, amazing singer. And I'm already seeing at her at 17 deal with challenges that we face. And it's things like, mic packs. It's things like the girls are typically the background singers. It's these things of like, what are we wearing on stage? As a young person growing up in church, people always told me what I needed to wear on stage that was like appropriate for stage. And one of the things that my husband and I have purposely done is not dictate what our daughter wears on stage. And there's a freedom in that allows her to love Jesus and not feel like she's being told what to do. And I actually just want to honor all of the men and the engineers and the sound people at this conference, because you guys have done an amazing job at honoring us. Yeah, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. We tour across so many places, and it's just really spoken to me, this conference, you guys, so thank you. But yeah, so I don't want to leave time for you guys to ask questions after, but I just want to know that I see you and I hear you. When you feel like you are called to lead and called to influence the culture of your spaces and your churches, and your circles. And I also want to encourage you that if you feel like you keep kind of hitting your head against a wall, trying to convince leadership of who you are, or convince your teams that are not pastors or that are not artists, I want to encourage you to ask God perhaps where you could be outside of the church, because maybe part of your calling actually has nothing to do with your church, but your music ministry and your creativity also has to do with outside things. And I speak, kind of firsthand, because as well as being in Christian music, I'm also a film director and an actor, and a creative in those spaces. And I'm telling you that in the film industry, it is the easiest place to love people, because it can be a very lonely place to be. Our actors are in their trailers by themselves. They're having lunch by themselves. And even in the concert culture, the Christian music culture, you're in buses by yourself, you're eating lunch in the lunchroom. It is such an amazing place to do ministry and to love people. Just love people. They just need friends. I think we just need friends. I've been in trailers by myself, and I'm like, who can I talk to, And, and I'm like, I'll bring all the believers that love Jesus just to be a light on set, So yeah. So in that sense, a couple practical things. Your vision is important, and put it in front of you. I think oftentimes we'll get a whisper from God of like, I want you to do this. And then I think for me, I proceed to ask God 10 times, are you sure? Like, I need a confirmation. The next sign I see when I'm driving down the road, I will know then, or you bring me the people. I'm better now. I'm just like, okay, yes, God, I'm gonna go do it. But I think there's something inside of us, especially as believers, that we hear those whispers and then we doubt them right away. We go, is this God? Are you sure? And my inkling is to say that it usually is. I don't think it means it's gonna be an easy road. I just think as I get older, I learn to doubt those whispers, and I act on them more. So yeah, put your vision in front of you. It is important, because when people around you are coming and telling you that they're not sure about that, that it's like Noah and the ark. I know it's pretty cliche, but it's like when God said, go build the ark, and everyone else was like, you're crazy. But Noah knew, and then when it rained, he's like, I told you, I knew what I was doing. Sometimes as visionaries and creatives, we are the only people that know what we're supposed to be doing. And that's totally okay, you guys. And people will come along. When you look like you're doing really well, you'll have more people come along. And then when it gets hard, those people will drop off. But I think that when you have it in front of you and you know that you're God will open the doors and he'll bring the people that you need. So put those goals in front of you. Something that I do is I have a vision board, I have a dream board. I literally have it all in pictures. I know what I want to do, and most of the time, a lot of the things on my board actually happen. I'm believing for them. The other thing is when you have that vision, set your goal and work backwards. So have a date of like, this is what you want to do. This is when you want to see it by. And of course, if it doesn't happen by that date, don't give up. But it's a good way to go, this is how I'm going to purpose my time. And I know for me, I have 3 kids. They are now young adults, but I feel like emotionally it's even that much more hard these days. But as women especially, we're unique in the fact that we take care of our village. We are people that look after everybody, and probably we look after ourselves last. And I am very, very blessed to have a husband that has, I literally, when we started dating, I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna change the world, and I'm gonna go around singing and speaking, and if you wanna have kids and help me raise them, I'm in, let's go, And he is, to this day. He's been like a huge support. And so I fortunately have had an incredible example of what a father and a husband who supports women is. And so I had to be really intentional with my time, because as a creative and a mom, and I had 3 kids, that was a lot for me. And I was not a natural mother. And I don't mean that in the sense of like, of course I'm a natural woman, but I wasn't the natural like nurturer, right? I was like, let's get to work, like clean your room and do, like I'm kind of administrative that way, that I was always about like my goal, my intention, where God's called me. And so I had to learn to balance motherhood and creativity. But what I have learned is that if you set yourself even 5 minutes, and I'm talking 5 minutes a week, if you want to write songs, do it for like half an hour, don't do it for 5 minutes. But we are really good at scheduling everybody else's things. We're really good at scheduling our household. We're really probably good at scheduling our worship teams and our other leaders. And, back in the day, I'd get like the overhead projector. My favorite thing was getting the overhead. You guys remember that? Am I so old that I'm like, okay. No, but we're really good at scheduling other people's things. But when it comes to scheduling things to invest in ourselves, it often is the thing that comes last, I find. And then I think if you can be really intentional about that time, and I learned this actually from Brian. Brian, every Friday has a scheduled appointment with himself to songwrite. And so when it comes to your creativity, and of course, we're at a musician summit, so I'm sure most of you are musicians, but also, have you even allowed yourself to take that time to listen? Right? So even if that half an hour is to go for a walk and listen to the whispers, that is just as productive as sitting at your piano or sitting at your guitar and trying to write a song. And I'm telling you, even in the times that creatively I've been stuck, the things that actually get me out of that sort of stuckness, that's not a word, but I just made it a word, is doing something that has nothing to do with my art or my music. It's, being inspired by the world around you. So, so that's my other thing. And then the next thing I want to say is surround yourself with supportive people. Pray for those people to be in your lives if you don't have them, because they do come. And it may take some time, and it may take some getting to know people. As Joyce said, that comes out of relationship. And also be open to the surprise that it might be people that you never thought it would be. I think oftentimes especially in music and worship, we have this idea of like sort of the fun and the fabulous, the big, the better. But some of my biggest supporters have been people that aren't even in music, that aren't even in the creative world. That some of them actually, some of my biggest inspirations haven't even been believers. I have a friend that's a composer, and he composes for like children's cartoons, like My Little Pony and Paw Patrol and like all these things. And he's not, I would say he's not really a believer, but every time we have conversations, he's like, totally understands, my faith, and is like, oh yeah. And I'm like, I'm gonna pray for you. He's like, yeah, please pray for me, But he taught me actually a lot about just the discipline of music. And we've been friends for about 20 years, and we get to do a lot of life together. And so, be surprised by who God's going to bring you. Oh, but now I'm going to bring up one of my friends. Brian, you want to come up? Everybody, Brian Dirksen. He graciously said he would come to my workshop because so much of my story these days has to do with this guy. And part of the reason that I wanted to bring him up is because I love empowering women. I love teaching about empowering women, but one of the things I think we don't actually see a lot of or hear a lot of is men empowering women in our churches and in our circles. And Brian is somebody that, no Kleenex, I'm not gonna cry, but you know what? Our relationship started because we started working on a musical project together. And from there, we just started to share meals. COVID happened, we started to share meals together, and we just became friends. And I personally don't know a lot, we go to a lot of different things and we do a lot of things together. To me, it's still a challenge to find men who just want to ask me my name. And it sounds sad, I know, I don't mean it to sound sad or negative. I just think we need to just be really more intentional about knowing and seeing each other and about being curious about each other. And Brian is somebody that I think throughout your career, you've been really intentional about raising up women. Mm-hmm. And so, and you continue to be, And so I just wanted you to share some things from your heart about what we're talking about today.
Well, maybe I'll start responding to that this way is I'm who I am a lot because of my mother. And it was about 1960. My mom and my dad went to Bible college together in Winnipeg, Manitoba, to their home denomination Bible school, which was a Mennonite Brethren school. And, my mom is, she's a very, very special woman, and Agnes Lydia Unger Dirksen, and the school president at one point took really note of her because of her spark, her communication skills, her character, all of these things. But at one point said to her, "It's too bad you're a woman. You would make an amazing preacher, encourager," like all of these things, listed all of these things. I mean, the fact that he said it out loud was very telling. But I remember when I heard that as a teenager, I was like, when she first told me that story, I thought, what a strange world. That somebody who has evident calling and gifting and character, but their gender is wrong, that they're not allowed to do those things. And it's, in my opinion, often what has happened is we have taken certain hard to understand scriptures and we've weaponized them. Anyway, but the thing was, by this point, I'm a teenager, and my mom, I'm watching her with this little mischievous twinkle in her eye. She is doing all the things that the Bible school president said she couldn't do, even in contexts where women officially aren't allowed to. She was. She found a way to teach, to influence, to, it's kind of like, you remember, I don't know, in a way, it's like that big movie, Big Fat Greek Wedding, well, I'm the neck that turns the head, you know what I mean? Remember that moment in that movie?
Yes.
She found a way to leverage things and to lead in ways. And I remember, hearing stories of my mom and dad going on a ministry trip to Scandinavia, and hundreds of university students showing up to a session at a conference, and there's my mom at the front teaching them how to pray, how to hear from God, how to care for people. And she's like, and they're all just listening and taking notes, right? That's
Yeah.
my mom, you know?
Yeah.
So I think being a son of somebody like that, it was like, and then as I began to lead in my late teens into my early 20s, that was one of the very first things I would do. I would ask the question in any context, where are the women who are called to do this, to lead, to be creative? And I would try and find them, encourage them, back them, get them, you know, on the platform, get them leading with me, leading without me, you know, like, so it's kind of like mother tongue for me, I think,
It
because
is,
of my
yeah.
mother.
Yeah, yeah. But it's still like, and you know, because we travel so much together, but how few women are still
Yeah.
on
Well,
stages.
I go to different contexts and I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't even know why I'm still shocked, but I'm shocked at how few women keynote speakers there are, how few, like in every way, women are underrepresented
Yeah.
in faith expressions of art, creativity, and leadership.
Yeah, and do you wonder too if part of that is because that's been the norm? So even, because I know that there's amazing piano players, there's amazing guitarists, there's amazing female drummers, but maybe it's stopped us from saying, hey, I'm available. Like,
Yeah, well, I think also, you know, what is just keeps begetting what is, like the cycle continues. But
Yeah.
you described it so well when you talked about caring for your village, right? There's this nurturing aspect to most women who end up, because of role models and all of this, they end up having to do everything.
right.
So then in the end, it's really hard for them to have the strength and the energy left in order to take, because, you know, because the focus of this is empowering creative women. And I'm thinking, in order to express something creative, whatever that is, songs is one thing, but music and all the creative arts, it requires enough margin around the creative act so that you can show up to that creative act with enough focus and energy. You actually need however much time you need for that creative thing, you need margin on both sides of it that's almost like the same length of time. And sometimes I know people who don't have a creative calling, they wonder sometimes, like, what do you do with those hours when you're like just, you know, walking? Well, like, but the thing is, us creatives, we need a lot of processing time, right? And yeah, you guys are nodding, right?
Yeah,
You
they're
understand,
nodding.
like,
Yeah.
you just don't. It's not like this efficiency machine, because you need to ponder. You need to prepare, you need to process, and then once you've had that gift of time, and then here you can be present to now I'm gonna sit down at the piano and I'm gonna write something, or whatever. So
That sounds heavenly. So how do you do it when you don't have that gift of time?
well, I mean, I think, again, this is why we also need rhythm in our life. We are rhythm beings, okay? And it's part of our design. And so when you put creative things and self-care things into the rhythm of your life, when sometimes those things get pulled away from you for a moment or for a season, it's almost like muscle memory. The rhythm, you can still keep functioning, but eventually you're going to need the margin back, or you won't create meaningful, lasting art. And one of the reasons, I think, just a little theory of mine, why we're seeing such short-lived songs in the modern worship movement and other movements, and we're just seeing whoop, gone, whoop, gone, because so much of what is being pumped out without margins. It's like humans have become content generators, and they're just having to just constantly churn out content versus taking the time to really ponder, really sit, try things. You know, good art takes time.
Yeah, absolutely.
anyway, I'm
No, I like it. I like this.
but so, and I can't figure out why we, as in the human race, and in, let's call the we, the faith community around the world, why we wouldn't want both genders to be fully present, participating, and contributing to the songs we need, to the books we need to read, all of those things.
Yeah.
Because it was through my mother and through other women of faith that I was encouraged and I was inspired.
Yeah.
And I want more people to be encouraged and inspired.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. Can you stay?
I can stay.
Thank you. Please stay. I want to actually just open up the floor right now because I want to hear from all of you. If you're comfortable sharing, no pressure at all. I can talk for the next 15 minutes, no problem. But I really do want to hear, what are some of your challenges? What is something that you would like to see that you're not seeing? That perhaps, people like us that do have sort of the ability to help encourage that in the circles that we go. I just want to hear for what you're feeling. And so, is Brian bringing in a mic?
Well,
he's just coming up, walking around. Brian's coming to tell us what he wants to.
No, if somebody wants to ask a question,
Yes.
they'll hand you a mic.
Perfect. Does anyone want to share?
We've
Mindy.
got one here.
One right here? Yeah.
For starters.
I am so happy I came to this class. Thank you so much, everybody. And I just felt like, I'm on this stage of life where my kids are grown and they're adults and they do need a lot emotionally, and it's a lot of time talking to them over the phone. I have 7 kids. And so I just felt like I know there's more that God wants to bring forth in my life, and it is how, I was almost a little discouraged taking the other course thinking, I need hours of time to write a song or to, work through and to learn how to do it. And maybe it's not for me, but I thought, but God, if you're calling me to write something, I want to dedicate some time to, I like hearing that. It could be a half hour instead of longer period. Like maybe I can get that. But I felt like, I just wanted, I don't know what my question is, but, okay. So a lot of times I'm exhausted.
You're exhausted.
Now I realize, I'm doing too much, and then I don't have anything left for that creative.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's coming back to like how to make that space to really rest and then have the energy to come forth. And I know it's probably different for each person, but I'm just really moved by God here. So I'm just like crying through this whole thing.
Yeah, but you actually said it, you just answered your own question. It's actually in the rest. Mm-hmm. And it's something that as women, I was actually never good at rest. I learned to rest from Brian and Joyce. Because when I get too busy, Joyce she pulls me around and is like, okay, we're gonna just rest now. And I had never known that it was okay to rest. Right? I'm not just okay, it's actually necessary as creatives to rest. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, like oftentimes we are exhausted, so there is nothing left to give creatively. Now I know this because my career has gone a lot slower than probably a typical pop, I was a top 40 recording artist, like I was top of the charts. And then even in the Christian music, my music all plays on the radio, but I never toured at first because my priority was raising my kids and keeping my family together. There's also a lot of broken families, even in Christian music. There's a lot of broken marriages in Christian music. People are touring for weeks at a time. They're not seeing their spouses. My husband and I know Brian and Joyce are like this, we always had a mandate that there was no long amount of time that we were away from each other. And so even as a young artist, my husband and my kids were with me. It was us to the end. It still is to this day. And so we purposed that. And so there was always this sense of, I'm always going. Like the hour I'm on stage was like my break time. But there was I know, it's crazy. But that's true, but that's how it was. It was like, if I want to do this, and it was never about the money or the fame. It was literally about, I want to do what God is calling me to do, and I just want to sing love over people. And so it was a good reason. but I know that my creativity has suffered in a way because I never rested and I never took the time to just not be exhausted. So start there. Your half an hour in your week is take a nap. Or go watch a movie that's going to inspire you. I watch movies all the time, by the way. Like, movies that I watch totally inspire the way I write music. And what inspires even my spiritual life in what I bring into church circles. But start there, because perhaps your next song is going to come out of when you are sleeping and dreaming, and God whispers you that song in your dreams. I'm not even kidding. Like, I literally wake up with my pen and my paper.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
I think I want to just jump off that to say, I think this is one of the great gifts that the Hebrew Israelite nation brought to the world, because in their context, all the nations around them were nations where it was like nonstop work, slavery, and the gods made humans to work for them. And along comes the revelation through Moses and others. Actually, no, God designed us to work out of rest and to work out of delight. And so this is the Sabbath gift and everything. And so it's almost like by putting a rhythm in your life of like, I want to be creative. And I love Marika's idea. Whatever that block of time is, start by not trying to generate creativity, but by resting in that block. And then maybe the next week, what do you got? You're exhausted? Guess what? It's another nap. It's a whatever it is, until you're rested enough that a little spark, a little seed comes, and you go, oh, maybe that's the beginning of a song. Oh, maybe it's an idea to go see so-and-so, bring them something and have a conversation with them that leads to something else, right? Like, it's but it's that mindset that's the great gift. One of the great gifts of the Old Testament is that our work is meant to come out of our rest. We're not meant to rest after we work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think too, go ahead. Oh, it's Joanne. Is that you, Joanne, back there? Yes. Hi, Joanne.
I so appreciated yesterday when we had a chance to talk, and you talked specifically about this idea of setting time. As women, we tend to get caught up in all the things that our family's doing, all our responsibilities, and I have 3 daughters who are all grown and 7 grandkids, and they all live close to me, which I am very glad for that. But it had become where I was the backup parent, where I would get the phone call, so-and-so's sick at school, can you go pick them up, or they missed the bus. And so I had to intentionally say, okay, guys, I am open to that. I am here for you. But on Thursdays, I have women's Bible study in the morning, and that is my time.
Yeah.
And I had to make that a priority. I had to set some boundaries, because we tend to not do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and actually, that's a good point, Joanne, because I think too, for those of you who are in church ministry and church music ministry, we often give so much more by our nature, and we often get exhausted. I see a lot of exhausted people in music ministry in church, and I think that's part of us not setting boundaries. And I think it's partly because we think that if we set boundaries, we're doing injustice to God, and we're just not.
And the other thing I'd like to encourage women is, if you're told you can't do that, you can't be in that position, or, it's too bad you're not a man, type thing.
Yeah.
Don't listen to all of that.
Yeah.
Because often God will show you ways that you can do that. And that if he's called you to do it, that he will open that door.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Joanne. And one thing that Joanne we had a chat yesterday, and one thing that I loved what she said is that she has a lot of single moms in her church, a lot of single women, a lot of unmarried women. And I know that in sometimes in our cultures, we have this idea that the women are important because of the men next to them. And I think especially in this generation of young women, you have more young women that aren't getting married younger, that are choosing careers or choosing other things. And it's because, life, obviously, it's probably because of all those crazy dating apps that just make life really hard. But our culture is changing, and so the women in our church are also changing. And I think it helps if we adapt with them. And I'm now a mom of young adults, so I'm not changing diapers, I'm not doing anything like that. But I realize too, there's a lot of my identity that I found in being a mom and being a wife, that some of the things creatively I either forgot or I just thought I couldn't do it because I didn't have the time. So I also want to say, just be gracious with yourselves, and also to the husbands in the room, be gracious with your wives as we rediscover a new kind of self of who we are. And it's not that we're gonna, change crazy completely, but I think there's this aspect of the creativity in us that for each seasons of our life, as we get older and as we grow and even as kids change, that we are honoring that part of us that allows us to change. Brian and Joyce always have this funny thing that, Joyce always says, oh, this is Brian, he's my 6th husband. Yeah, and it's because he's an artist, so he changes like every few years. I think Joyce is on number 3, wife number 3. But you know what, I loved it. It's like, they joke about it from the stage, but it actually really impacted me. Because if someone, when I was first married, told me that like, you're gonna change, and your seasons are gonna change, and when you become a mom, you're gonna change, and when your kids are in high school, you're gonna change, and when they become young adults and you're sort of empty nesters, you're gonna change. And I think it would save actually a lot of marriages, because we get married and we expect to be the same. And then, oh my gosh, you add being an artist to the mix, like, God bless Joyce and Stacy, because to be the spouse of an artist and a creative is it's like 2 full-time jobs. But yeah, we're making room. I have room for like 2 more questions probably, and then we're gonna, we have 5 minutes.
So if you want
Okay,
me to
so
do
I
the
want you
song.
to sing your song.
Okay, well, let me just tell, because I need
Yes.
to tell Cindy's story.
Go.
So we're just going to wrap up with a song I'm going to sing over you that I co-wrote with one of the most amazing women leaders, creatives that I've ever had the privilege to know. Her name is Cindy Rethmeyer, and she, oh my gosh, her story is so crazy because she was involved in a church, the mother church of the Vineyard movement, the Anaheim Vineyard, and in the early 80s, and the leaders of that church came from a Quaker background, and so women were not allowed to be on the stage. And so she started singing and leading, and they had her microphone. She would hide side stage. She was allowed to sing, but not be seen for several years, and then people would ask, whose voice is that? It's like an angel, it's just so beautiful, but why can't we see her, right? Rules taught by men. Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole, because I'm the son of my mother, boy, I tell you. Anyway, but anyway, through some wonderful circumstances, Cindy and I met in 1989, and we became friends, and we started writing songs together. And here we are, 35 years later, still dear friends, still writing songs together. And her and I wrote this song that I want to sing over you because it's called Beholding. And it takes a word that you think of as a worship word to God, and we sing it over each other. And it came out of an experience. She was reading a devotional book about the image of God in every single person. And Joyce and I, on our way to see them, stopped at a restaurant and had this profound encounter with a server. And as we walked out of the restaurant, we were remarking how incredibly moved we were by this person by their uniqueness, by their personality, by the kindness in which they served us. And it was like I saw them and I marveled at who they were. And then I had this line. I said, Cindy, let's sing I'm Beholding You, a never before, never again soul. And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I grabbed my guitar and we set off on this song. So I want to sing this over every daughter and son in this room, that you are unique, that you are beautiful, and that one of the most important things that we get to do, and one of the most creative things we can ever do, is see people. It's like really see them and let them know that they are seen. So this is, and I wish Cindy was here to sing it with me, because, but I'm so glad to do this with you, Marika. I'm beholding you, a never before, never again soul. Treasure now revealed, your beautiful heart, the wonder of who you are. Every thread, every shade, love's design. Every part, every age, love's delight. And I'm beholding you, a never before, never again soul. Kindness shared with grace, you listen and serve, the way you enrich our world. All you give, all your care, a gift of love. And all you bring, all you are, you're enough. 'Cause I'm beholding, I'm discovering your amazing heart. I'm beholding, I'm discovering who you truly are. And I'm beholding you, a never before, never again soul.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming. We are out of time, so on to your next session.
Yes.